I was out in the field throwing discs, and I want you to take a look at these two flights side by side. One went 411 feet, and one went 461 feet with the same wind and release angle. In this video, I'm going to be diving into the difference between these two discs and how you can get upwards of 13% more distance by switching out one disc that you probably bag for another one. Today I'm going to be comparing three of my favorite drivers, the Innova Wraith, the Star Destroyer, and the Discmania DD3. So for a lot of people, they pick up a Destroyer and it fades out way early on them. And so for a lot of people, it might be a good idea to pick up a Wraith to get some more glide. So I'm going to be seeing the different flight paths of the discs and how much more distance you get out of the Wraith compared to these two. I've also got this sweet drone setup behind me, and I couldn't make this video without including this clip. Fails aside, here is me throwing the Wraith, DD3, and Destroyer with the overhead drone shot. I now have the drone way up in the air. I'm going to throw these all again and flat. I've got follow flights for all three of these discs, and it's so cool seeing them side by side. This is my Wraith, getting some good turn out of it, and finally coming back at the end for 439 feet of distance. Next is my beat up DD3, and it gets a little bit of turn, but pretty much just holds dead straight and then hyzers out at the very end. Finally, my Destroyer, which is the most overstable here, it goes very straight and then acts kind of like a meat hook at the end, going a bit shorter than the DD3. If that wasn't enough follow flights for you, I have all three side by side right here, so you can see when they get to the ground and how much distance they get compared to each other. I think this part is super cool. Looking at all three side by side, you can tell why the Wraith gets so much more glide is because it actually gets a nice S turn out of it, whereas the other two flip up to flat, but then don't ride to the right. They just flip up and then hyzer out. I'm just going to take a moment to appreciate this grouping here. These are the Destroyers and the DD3s. And then we have the Wraith all the way up here, probably 40 or 50 past. I'm going to measure that right now. I've now got the drone up behind me to give you another angle. The first shot here is with my Wraith, and it turns over a lot and only hyzers out at the very end, gets a lot of distance. Next is my DD3, which is still pretty beat up. It turns over a little bit, but then hyzers out sooner than the Wraith. Next is my Canada Stamp Destroyer, which is a little bit more flippy than the other Destroyer, and went pretty straight and then hyzered out at the very end. My other DD3, I got a little bit too high, but it's pretty flippy, so it turned over into a nice flex shot. Finally, my Destroyer, I threw this one on a little bit of an anhyzer release, not intentionally, but it still fought out of it and got a lot of distance. Those three I threw flat, so they got a lot more turn and glide. And one of the DD3 shots, I'm going to call an outlier, because it slipped out of my hand because it was wet. But I'm going to measure the rest of them. Looking back at where I threw, the pink Wraith went the farthest at 446. The Destroyer was around 415. The DD3 landed just short and left of the Destroyer over here. And then we have the Canada Destroyer over here. I'm going to measure that one. So there you could see that the Wraith beat out everything else by at least 30 feet. Now I'm going to head back and do some more overhead shots. I'm going to be throwing those all again. Oh, that is a pump. Keep gliding. Yep, that's a great shot. DD3. A little bit of a lower line. Still, you can get a ton of glide. Destroyer here. full flex. DD3 again. Oh no, that doesn't count. That thing is so slippery. All right, and finally the Destroyer. So stable. Okay, this Wraith was absolutely pumped out there. That's where I threw from. We got about 460. And then the next closest disc is the red Destroyer, which is about 40 feet back, so I'm gonna measure that. I plugged the throws into a spreadsheet, and I only had 3 throws with the Wraith because I only brought 1 Wraith that day. But it turns out that the Wraith flew an average of 51.5 feet farther than the Destroyers, which is 13% farther. Like, who would have thought that the Wraith, which is the same numbers as a Destroyer, just 1 speed less, would go 13% farther? That is just pretty cool to me. This throw with the Wraith is a great example of the disc just not wanting to come to the ground, as it really wants to just stay up in the air and keep gliding, and it only hyzers at the very end. So the Wraith was consistently the farthest flying. It had so much more glide and flip, and you can probably see that on the drone footage too. Just stays in the air longer, even though it's not a 12 speed, it's a 1 less. But that shows that you don't have to throw a Destroyer to get that maximum distance. No matter your skill level, even if you throw 500 feet, which is way farther than me, you can definitely benefit from picking up a Wraith instead of a Destroyer, because you'll get that full flight out of it, and you'll even get more control. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it informative, and subscribe for more videos like this in the future.